Hello, Mr. Nevins. How are you?
I'm fine. Welcome to the gallery,
Oh, thank you.
Atrium Gallery.
How long did it take you to prepare this show?
In some ways this show started in 2011, in some ways it started in September. As anyone who's followed me before, I was in France most of last year, and I applied for getting this gallery a year ago, October, and the process is so long sometimes. But the original projects that this arose out of started in 2010, and the first project, which are these black squares, started in a City of Ottawa studio grant that I received in 2011. All these images in this gallery are slit scan, which means rather than a square sensor like most cameras, it's one thin line that takes a picture, and it's just time-based after that. So it just stacks these lines in the camera one after another.
And you took these pictures with your... So what do we have here?
So I made a small example of a slit scan camera. This one doesn't save images, it only displays the images. And so you can even see yourself here, the camera right there in the center, a black spot going back and forth. And if you just go back and forth, you can actually see you and the camera being imaged just slowly. You have to go slowly. So there I am. It's really hard to get the light conditions here because I don't have any way of controlling. Oh, that's a good one. Controlling the aperture for brightness and darkness. So I've had to take some kind of average. It's usually not this bright, and it's usually a lot more steady. But this is an example of what it actually does, and this has actually attracted many people to the gallery. Because it looks so strange. I mean, people, so what are you trying to do? People stick their face down into it and get some kind of image.
So this is one of your babies.
Exactly. It's essentially the innards of the camera without the saving part, just the displaying. These two pictures are small sections of some of the very long images. The top one is actually done downtown Ottawa. The bottom one was done in the south of France. Just what comes out as I stand there in the street corner.
So did you like it there?
Home-built camera.
Yes.
So these original pictures, the home-built camera was made out of a scanner. Rewrote the software for the scanner and placed the people on a table and rotated the table. And then a small mathematical transformation to turn them into circles. Otherwise, it just comes out like a piece of paper. It's one long scan, and they're just rotating on this scan. But I take a chunk of that and bring them together into these, which is exactly the same mathematical transformation that produces these from a panorama. So these are long, narrow pictures, 360-degree pictures, but then they're joined mathematically.
Are you a mathematician?
No, I'm a computer scientist / engineer, currently unemployed. I was currently a full-time artist.
Lots of full-time artists.
Yes, yeah. But no, this was a great project, and it's actually been really well received. It had not been seen. Some of these were shown at the Foyer Gallery 2 years ago, very briefly, but they've been very well received in here. And some of them, the transformations are a little bit more than a simple transformation. This is, I think, 3 sets of one transformation.
Who inspired you? Is there a school that is, or a particular artist who inspired you?
I think it's kind of a cross in between Dali and Escher. I believe, and of course, a non-artist, whose name's going to escape me, electronics engineer at MIT who invented the verse flashes. And for some reason, it'll come to me later. But just trying to see something different all the time, trying to do something different. And besides, if you notice these pictures, these people are wearing suits. this person is wearing a suit. It's not, the patterns on top of the people are not photoshopped on. Like, and this is actually a piece of cloth this woman's lying on. It's not an added pattern later.
So how did the models respond to these photos?
Well, to acquire models, I tend to trade 1 hour of my time for 1 or sometimes more hours of their time. Some of them want pictures as a model, some of them just want nice pictures. I've had people that, one woman brought her sister and they did some lovely portraits, family type portraits for themselves. But most of the time it's just models trying to do something different. I did have, for example, this part of the grant that funded this. Okay, I'm good. Yeah, part of the grant that funded this allowed some money for nudes. And what turned out is, okay, it allowed me money for 10 nudes. Well, after doing 6, nudes are boring. I like patterns. And the skin against the background is okay, but the skin by itself is uninteresting. That's where the suits, when the people are dressed up in the suits, is in my mind, that's absolutely
more stimulating
great.
For the eye.
And yes, and it's absolutely different. I've never seen anybody, as far as I know, nobody else has done this. It was first modeled using my daughter's Barbie and some Lego on a small table going around, which worked. And going from that to full size was not too much of a jump.
So all these pictures have been taken with the same camera?
No, there's 3 different projects in the gallery. This first project was done with the scanner-based camera. The other project, the second project, the squares were done in 2011. These were done in 2012. And these were done utilizing an assembly line camera. So it has the same thing. It has just one element, like a scanner, and an assembly line scans the things going below it to count and make sure there's no defects. This was 10-year-old technology. To use modern technology is absolutely outrageous in price. But this project also used grant-based, and I was in error. This was a studio-based one. This was a emerging artist grant. So this provided cash, which I was able to get a studio, where this one provided just the studio. Nothing for models or anything else. And this combined these two in between it was slightly more than a year I was doing this between these 2 projects. It comprised roughly 120 models. I saw 120 people come through the 2 studios in that time, which is 1 or 2 a weekend for those since I was working. Yeah.
So you must have been exhausted after.
It was really busy, but fun. I got to meet all kinds of really interesting people, and which is part of the real attraction. You end up making friends for the 2 hours, and then bye, you're gone. Next. Of course, some people were in both projects, which was also interesting to see them again several months later. But this project, where they were essentially standing up rather than being on the table and rotating, they were turning while being scanned from top to bottom, which turned, and no Photoshop for these. These are not twisted mathematically in any form. So there were extra limbs and extra pieces of cloth that ended up showing up afterwards. This, for example, this piece of cloth, these are all the same cloth. It's just taken at slightly different times as it was scanned around. And you can see her leg being completely around her other leg.
So how do the models feel to see their bodies distorted?
They don't see them. The process afterwards, I mean, it takes, these are immense pictures, very, very large pictures. The process afterwards takes hours. And it's fun to do, but I only show them a day or two later what we actually did. And for the hour that they spend doing this, and it would take several pictures. It'd be 10 or 15, 20 pictures sometimes. I only usually get out 1 or 2 pictures out of the entire series of what's worthwhile. Sometimes there's more. Sometimes if I go back, I look at them, maybe that one's better. Can try to brighten it and whatnot. But, usually I only try for 1 or 2 pictures per session.
And in this show, how many pieces do you have?
I believe there's 41 altogether.
And the
Not including some ones that are not framed in the display case.
In the first project, you had how many? The oldest one, the square.
The square, how many models? I believe that was 43. No, this is 53. And in this project I had, this one was split up because things didn't work very well at the beginning. But there was roughly 50 models as well.
So how do you feel that as an artist you depend so much on technology to create art?
You can't do this without the technology. This is impossible to do without, okay, that's not true. It's possible. In the old film days, they would pull film behind a slit, which is why it's called slit scan, to get something similar. You cannot do the square ones, the mathematically transformed ones, because that requires all the digitization and the transformations, which the mathematics behind it. I enjoy building the cameras. I enjoy trying to do something very, very different, which to me is part of part of the craft. Is that fair? I don't really like to call it a craft. It's part of the art.
How many cameras have you built to date?
Well, the third camera, which is the 2013 pictures, which are in the center of the gallery, are all built from a camera, all created from a camera I built while in the south of France last year. These are transformations the same way as the transformations of the people, except for these are mostly landscapes. And these are, this one, the other two cameras had really large deficits. They could not be taken outside. They required large power sources, et cetera, et cetera. This one could be handheld, but essentially you can take it outside and it's battery run, and it's small enough so that even this weekend I plan on going down to the canal and trying it. I've tried it once before. Mixed results. I'll do it again.
When we met in September, you told me that you were working on a camera making color.
I'm still working on it. It's much more complicated than
in black and white.
Yeah, and plus I finished the basement instead. Other things got in the way, but it's still in the progress. I've now moved the process I'm in now. I've got the sensor inside of the camera. It's building the back end, some of the data processing, and then working on even this morning.
So this is your most recent project?
This is actually the most recent one is down here. These are still, the square ones were in France, but this image, which is roughly a minute and a half of a lovely model that we did downtown near the locks. And I have a separate image of this that's 8 feet long, which I'd love to print. I'm having difficulties finding easy printing. But that would be almost 6 minutes long. It's 8 foot. I've had one of these images similar, although the image from south of France, shown in the Thames Gallery down in Chatham, Ontario, for a show that just ended last week. I forget the name of the show, but it was a jury show.
How many shows do you have lined up this year?
This year I have a solo, actual shows. I have another solo show in November, which are all going to be the longer type. the 8-foot and some of the square ones. All hopefully mostly this year, but possibly some more from the south of France. I will be giving a talk at the Ottawa Camera Club in April about what I'm doing and how I do it. Beyond that, nothing yet, but I'm expecting to hear from a couple more.
And how many long ones do you have?
At this point, I have half a dozen long images, but I want to get some of them more local. Most of the long ones I have, the size of Anne, one of Anne, are from the south of France. But I want to get more Ottawa-based images, just to give people a closer feeling for home.
And these photos somehow change our perception of reality.
That's correct.
And of what normal is.
It's just time.
Yes.
And the next exhibit, called Time Slice, if you take one of these lines, it's just tacked onto the other one, and as she's moving, she's walking towards me very, very slowly during this time. And just one slice out of after another. So it's all time-based as the person is walking. But something different.
At this point, what is your major challenge?
Major challenge, say for the color. Okay, I've got two big ones. One is getting color working, which is mainly data flow, which color in this form is at least, the sensor I'm using is going to be 4 to 5 times more data at the same rate. But I'd love to increase the rate by 2, which means almost 10 times as much data as this, and that is going to be hard. My other problem is getting these things printed. I have another artist friend, Jim DeRiviere, that may be printing one of them, but I can't depend on him to print everything. And a good printer is very expensive. I mean, to do it myself. I've inquired with places around town, and actually the 16-foot one that I sent down to Thames was printed by a firm in town. The quality was, I think I can do better, but it's a matter of trying several things.
And it's only the beginning of the year.
That's right. I've got 8 months, 9 months to worry about before I get to that point. Actually, less time. No. Everything's got to be done by at least September, October, because otherwise I run out of time.
Mr. Nevins, thank you so much, and please stay in touch.
Oh, no problem. Glad to see.
Hello, Mr. Nevins, how are you?
I'm fine.
You have a very interesting piece. I think it's the longest piece in the show.
It's a part of a series of work. The rest will be seen at my solo show next week at the Trinity Gallery.
So let's talk about this one.
It's this is a single exposure, roughly 5.5 minutes long, and it's from a camera that I built a couple of years ago. And it's different. I don't think anybody else is doing anything quite like this.
How long is it?
It's almost 8 feet long. I think 94 inches.
So what made you decide to make this serpentine photo?
I did a bunch of flat ones, and I wanted to do one that was a little bit different, because I think there's other possibilities available here. I just have to do something else again. It's always something different.
And in the show next week, the solo show, will you have similar, much shorter?
No, some of them, I think there's 9 that are 8 feet long, some that are 4 feet, some of them are square, just plain old square, simple portraits.
Well, looking forward to seeing you there.
It's going to be a good one.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. This is a good day.
How many pieces do you have here?
There's 23 pieces altogether.
And this is different from what we've seen before.
This is very different. This has not been seen in Ottawa before. Many of these are absolutely brand new, and the size and the scope of these images are completely new.
And how did you decide to make them like this?
It's a natural evolution of what the pictures how they come out of the camera. They're a little bit longer than most of these coming out of the camera. These are roughly 8 feet long, these two. And the pictures themselves are closer to the 10 to 13 feet. But at some point I can't fit everything in there.
And where did you take them?
These two in particular were taken in Montpellier, France. There's a few more of those, but these are the only 2 long ones that were taken in Montpellier.
Would you like to talk about it? Because they're different.
They're very different. With regards to any of the images, if the background is static, or in other words, just lines, the camera is not moving. Where if you see the background, the camera is rotating on a little platform and it goes around. Or in extreme cases, the camera is rotating about the axis about the lens. So it's completely different.
Can we show the camera?
You can see a representation of the camera. This is a demonstration device, and you'd have to step in front of it to actually see what happens. You kind of see what happens on the screen.
So that's me.
That's you and the camera. And as you move, it only sees movement, so if you have to go back and forth a little bit, yeah, or side to side, I should say, or so it takes one line at a time and appends that line on the screen, as opposed to this does not save images. This is just for demonstration, and it's more of a multimedia draw to bring people into the gallery. But the actual camera that I do use saves it to an SD card, and I then look at them later to see what happens.
So why would we want to see a distorted world?
Because it's different. It's real life. This is real life. This is not, I did not create these distortions. The people along that one line create the distortions. Why do we want to see it? Because they're interesting. It's real life. I mean, people that modify, I mean, these are a few friends that decide to jump around in front of the camera for me. It's just interesting looking. Because you know, I mean, if you know that there's no manipulation done to the image, it makes it much more fascinating.
And it also says a lot about how we perceive the world, how different.
That's correct. I mean, if you've ever read the short novel Flatland by the Reverend Abbott, he talks about life in one dimension, or 2 dimensions. This is life in one dimension. It's just, we see it over a period of time.
And they are all taken in France?
No, those are only 2 long ones taken in France. All the rest of the long ones, the very long one, 8-foot pictures, are taken downtown Ottawa. This one, as a matter of fact, was taken on Majors Hill Park. This was taken on Canada Day. I believe this was the Tulip Festival. Yes, this was the Tulip Festival. And then I have a few others that were taken in my backyard. They're just people dancing around.
And how did you decide to make them this long?
It's partially because it was an arbitrary number, just by chance. Partially because there's actual a physical limit on the file size that you can use in most editing programs. Or you can even save. You can't save a JPEG file longer than 30,000 lines, pixels in one dimension. These are 30,000 pixels in one dimension. Actually, these are 24 because I had to cut pieces off to make them fit.
And there's more here.
Yes. Again, the long ones with just singular models dancing in front. Or volunteers, not necessarily models. And then the other thing you can do with these same images, so when they're rotating around like a panorama, you can do a manipulation and flip them. This is taken with exactly the same camera, so one slice at a time. It's just you can mathematically transform them into this. And these two are actually the same two pictures. One is flipped before the transform and the other one isn't. So they both have the same chess pattern in the center.
These two look like the ones that we've seen before at the atrium, similar.
These were not shown at the atrium. This one actually, I believe, was shown at Selections, but its mate didn't get into that show. I like the pair of them actually. Or those are both again in south of France. These two are again from last winter during Winterlude. A picture of the canal. We need some more light here. And just at the park, which I don't remember the name of the park.
It is probably best for the public to actually come in.
Yes, oh yes, yes. It's much better to see it in real life. Again, the two long ones in wooden frames are back to Montpellier. Just different representations. Now you see here, I'm standing below a wind turbine, and every 3 seconds the blade is coming down below me.
The truth is that what we're looking at is not really just photography.
It is photography, certainly. You take one, but I'm just doing one line.
You're adding layers
Nope.
of metaphors.
If you can take, if you want to treat it that way, I just like making interesting images. There's so many people out there creating the same thing over and over again. It's good to try something completely different. I don't believe very many people can do this. Matter of fact, I don't think there's anybody else in Canada that can do this, or is doing it. Maybe not can, but I find the experimentation of dealing with this type of camera is fascinating. There's just more and more I can do with it. Again, rotating, this is 180 degrees about the axis of the lens. Again, in my backyard. Or this one, which is particularly strange. It's actually taken facing up. So these are people walking by. It always reminds me of flowers every time I see it. It's just...
I thought they were flowers.
See? It's a little bit different.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't look like just photography. It's a lot more.
It's more because there's an element of time between each one of these lines. If you took just that image, you'd see the background, you see everything that was going on, but all those people wouldn't be there at the same time. This is roughly 2 or 3 minutes in this one frame. So there's no way to divide this. And they're causing their own distortions by walking by. So they're all a little bit wiggly. And a little bit of background is making a flap. I believe that's a flap on a street sign. And of course I think most of these people are walking away from me, but the people that are walking to me are facing down. This is a crop of the alien wave, which is at Figureworks this week. This one's just flat. This was the original, but it's a little bit bigger, so you can see the people, but it's not quite as long. Again, back to southern France, and we can see the distortions in the cars and the motorcyclists being stretched into actually 2 pieces as he drives by.
So how do people respond?
Usually they're a little bit confused, they're trying to understand, they're trying to wrap their head around it. Most of the images are, I wouldn't say most of the images, the panoramics, they look really typically normal. There's nothing really too unusual about it until you start looking at some of the details, like the distortions. You know, the cars being stretched out. And that's what makes it fascinating. It's real life, but it's a little bit different, which makes it much more fun.
Do we need a lot of imagination to enjoy these photos?
I don't think so. I think that it's not just the imagination. You need to be able to question I don't mind the confusion if people don't understand it. I think that's part of early stages of learning is confusion. trying to draw it forward.
So it's okay if we come here and get a little bit confused.
Oh yes, yes. But that's again why I have the what I call the kiosk, the demonstration device, because it's important for people to try to play with it with themselves and try to understand what's behind the pictures.
And there's a few more here.
Yeah, the final two are just enlargements of some of the other ones. This one, of course, was on the postcard that went out. And dance number 2. Now, if I had more space, I could have fit many more images, but this one is one of my favorites.
So how do you feel? It just started today.
I think it looks good. It's going to be a good show. I expect I'll be here all through Bizart to talk about it to people, and as well as the opening, which I've been spreading the word far and wide, so I expect to get a pretty good crowd.
Thank you so much.
You're entirely welcome.